The first strange thing about the evening was the applause. It came too early. Darnell Pruitt had just finished shaking hands with the last supervisor from the water department when the room started clapping again, louder this time, like someone had signaled it from the back. He glanced toward the banner on the wall. 32 years of service. The letters were slightly crooked. Someone had hung them in a hurry. He set his paper plate on a folding table and looked around the union hall. Most of the faces belonged to men who knew what it meant to stand ankle-deep in freezing water at 3 in the morning while a city block waited for the pipes to start working again. They looked comfortable. Familiar. Near the back, something felt different. His son Aaron stood beside the door with his arms folded, speaking quietly to Nicole. His daughter nodded once, then stopped talking the moment Darnell looked their way. It wasn't hostility. It was coordination. Darnell noticed details like that. 30 years of infrastructure work taught you to recognize the small signals before something cracked open. Across the room, Yvette was walking toward the microphone. She'd insisted on organizing the ceremony herself. Said it was the least she could do after all those years of him working nights, weekends, holidays. Now she held a small envelope in one hand. Darnell noticed that too. Not because the envelope was unusual. Because she kept adjusting her grip on it like it weighed more than paper should. "You all know how hard Darnell has worked," she began. Someone near the front nodded. Another man raised a cup in Darnell's direction. Darnell stayed where he was, leaning lightly against the table. Her voice sounded steady. Practiced. He noticed the moment she stopped looking at him. She glanced briefly toward Aaron. Aaron gave a small nod. Nicole lowered her eyes to the floor. Yvette reached into her purse. "Darnell," she said quietly, loud enough for the microphone to carry, "I think this is the right moment to be honest about where things are going." He accepted the envelope and opened it. The room had grown so quiet that the paper sliding against itself sounded louder than the applause earlier. He read the first page, then the second. When he finished, he folded the papers carefully and placed them back inside. Then he reached into his jacket and pulled out a thin folder he had brought with him. He placed it gently on the table beside the envelope. No one knew what it was yet, but a few people leaned forward. Yvette walks down from the stage. The sound of her heels carries through the hall because the room has gone quiet enough to hear it. She stops in front of Darnell and extends the envelope with the particular stillness of someone who practiced this moment privately and is now executing it in public. He takes it. Opens it the way he opens documents, without urgency, without performance. 3 pages. He reads them, refolds them, places them back inside. Then he looks up. Aaron has moved away from the wall. He stands now midway down the left aisle, arms no longer folded, weight shifted forward. He's wearing a collared shirt Darnell doesn't recognize, pressed, which means he dressed for something specific tonight. Nicole is seated at a center table. She stood when Darnell arrived, hugged him with genuine warmth. Now she's still, hands folded, watching. "I wanted to do this here," Yvette says, still close to the microphone's range, "because I think honesty is what this moment calls for." A few people in the front row shift. One of the older foremen from the Eastern District turns in his seat and looks at Darnell with careful eyes. Darnell doesn't return it. He picks up his paper cup, takes a drink, sets it down. He looks at the folder. Then he reaches out and places it on the table beside the envelope, gently, the way you set something down that belongs in a particular place and has finally arrived at it. He pulls out the nearest chair and sits down in it, not away from the room, not turned toward the wall, but facing forward, the way a man sits when he has decided to watch something through to its end. The room stays quiet in the way rooms go quiet when something has happened that nobody has words for yet. Yvette is looking at the folder. Aaron is looking at the folder. Nicole is looking at her father, and her expression is the first one in the room that contains something that might be doubt. The first time it happens, Darnell doesn't register it as a pattern. He registers it as a bad night. It's a Sunday dinner. Aaron is back in the city after 4 years somewhere outside Columbus, he called temporary, and lived in for twice as long. Yvette has started organizing Sunday dinners. Darnell arrives late from a 12-hour shift, changes, comes into the kitchen to find Aaron and Nicole already at the table and a conversation he's walked into the middle of. Not sustainable, Aaron is saying. That's all I'm saying. Nicole has her phone face down, which means she's paying attention. Municipal work, Aaron says, when Darnell asks what they're talking about. In general. The dinner continues. Nobody comes back to it. The second time has a different shape. Aaron comes by the house unannounced on a Tuesday, finds Darnell in the garage working on a neighbor's water heater. Mom said you turned down the supervisor position again, Aaron says. I didn't apply, Darnell says. Same thing. Aaron looks around the garage, the sorted hardware, the labeled bins, the tools hung in order on the pegboard. It's the look of a man taking inventory of a situation. You could have made more money, Aaron says. Could have. He leaves without finishing whatever he came to say. His car backs out before Darnell looks up. The third time is at a downtown restaurant. Aaron has called it a family dinner, but he arrives with a folder tucked under his arm and a man named Terrence who works in financial planning. After the food arrives, Aaron slides a worksheet across the table. Household financial assessment, retirement transition. The numbers are estimates. Darnell can see that immediately from the round figures. The line labeled additional income sources is blank. The pension number, Aaron says, tapping it. Is that about right? The figure is low. Not drastically, but low in the specific way that comes from starting with an assumption and working outward from it rather than from the actual number inward. Where'd you get it? Darnell says. Public pension schedule, Aaron says. It's all available. Darnell looks at the blank line. He picks up his fork and eats. Nobody at the table speaks for a moment. In the parking lot afterward, Aaron walks beside him. I just want everyone to be okay, Aaron says. Darnell puts a hand briefly on his son's shoulder. He gets in his car. He drives home the long way. There is a storage unit on Garfield Avenue that Darnell has rented for 11 years. Yvette knows it exists. She's seen the monthly charge on the old joint account. She's never asked what's in it. Inside, for gray filing cabinets bought from a liquidation in 2009. A card table. A folding chair. A banker's lamp. A legal pad. A battery calculator. A thermos he brings from home. He goes on the third Saturday of every month and spends 2 to 3 hours going through the files. The files contain records of property. A duplex on the east side purchased in 2007. 2 lots acquired through a county tax auction in 2011, held for 6 years, sold in 2017 for a number he wrote on a piece of paper and keeps in the back of the second cabinet. He doesn't call them investments. He thinks of them the way he thinks about infrastructure, systems that require maintenance, that pay out slowly, that fail only when they haven't been maintained invisibly for a long time. On the second Tuesday of most months, he drives to an office on Wendell Street. The office belongs to Clyde Okafor, a licensed financial advisor for 23 years, a man Darnell has known since both of them were carrying things for other people. Clyde's carpet is burgundy and slightly worn near the door. He's kept a fish tank running on the credenza through 2 office moves. They sit across the desk from each other. Your son came by, Clyde says one Tuesday. 3 weeks ago. Darnell looks up. Said he was looking at investment options. Said a family friend referred him. He doesn't know I come here, Darnell says. I know he doesn't. Clyde sets the folder down. He wasn't looking for investment advice exactly. More like he was trying to understand a situation. What situation? He didn't say. Darnell picks up his thermos, finds it empty. He's going to figure out some of it eventually, Clyde says. Not as a warning. Most people figure out some of it, Darnell says. Same time next month. He drives home. Nicole calls on a Tuesday in May and asks if he has a few minutes. She's looking at a condo on the north side. The financing is mostly sorted, but there's a gap in the down payment. She gives him a figure that is not small and says no rush, which means soon. Aaron calls 11 days later. A business partnership. A capital contribution he describes as modest and time-sensitive. He uses the word investment when he means loan. Send me the documents when they're finalized, Darnell says. The documents don't come. What comes instead is Aaron at the front door on a Saturday with coffee and the expression of someone who decided presence would accomplish what paperwork couldn't. They sit at the kitchen table. Aaron pours the coffees like it's his kitchen. The pension situation, Aaron says, after the loan conversation dead ends. Are you comfortable with where it stands? What do you mean comfortable? I mean, is it going to be enough? For the house, the expenses. He says it clinically, the way Terrence might say it. If the pension is the main source. It's not the main, Darnell says. Aaron stops. Then what else is there, he says. Darnell stands. Rinses his cup. Places it upside down on the drying rack. Send the documents, he says. When they're finalized. He goes back to the garage. Later that week, Darnell drives past the storage unit without stopping and sits outside it in the running car for a while. He's been going through a sequence in his head, tracing each line from its source, pressure testing each junction. He does this when a system is approaching a change point. He drives to the post office. His box has one item. He reads it in the car, folds it, places it in the inside breast pocket of his jacket. He drives home. It doesn't happen the way separations happen in the stories people tell afterward. There is no argument that crystallizes it. It happens the way water finds a new path by the slow cumulative logic of least resistance, until one day the original channel is dry and you have to look carefully to see where it used to run. Darnell notices it in the mornings first. Yvette stops coming downstairs before him. The coffee is no longer made. He starts making it himself. She keeps her phone face down at the table. The Thursdays at her sister's house get longer, occasionally bleeding into Fridays. She references the future in small grammatical shifts, I want to instead of we should, when things settle down without specifying for whom. In April, for months before the retirement event, she comes home from her sister's with a different energy. She makes the chicken stew he's always liked, a meal that requires time, and putting time into something is a specific kind of statement. I've been thinking about the retirement party, she says. I know, Darnell says. She looks at him. You know what? That you want to organize it. She is quiet for a moment. Then she tells him about the venue, the program, the catering. He listens. He agrees. They stand at the sink afterward, washing and drying the dishes the way they've done it for 20-something years, and the familiarity of it almost erases what he's been noticing for months. Almost. He hands her the last plate. Their hands don't quite touch. He goes to bed before her. In the dark, the room is quiet in the particular way that rooms go quiet when two people are both awake and both aware the other one is awake, and neither is going to say anything about it. He looks at the ceiling. He thinks about the shape of things. The way a system looks when it's still running, but the pressure has already dropped somewhere you haven't found yet. Then he closes his eyes. 3 weeks after Aaron's kitchen visit, the Sunday dinner conversation carries a different texture. Nobody asks about money directly. The absence is structured, sentences that start and route away, questions that almost form and become innocuous. Aaron passes bread without making eye contact. Nicole's boyfriend asks about retirement plans in the vague way people ask when they mean something else entirely. Darnell tells him he's looking forward to having more time in the garage. Yvette, from the kitchen doorway, watches this answer land. Her expression doesn't change. The following Saturday at the storage unit, Darnell opens the third filing cabinet and removes a folder he placed there 14 months ago. He reads through it, makes 2 small notes on the legal pad, replaces it, turns off the banker's lamp. He sits in the dark for a moment. Not because he's troubled. Because he is thinking through a sequence, tracing each line from its source, pressure testing each junction, accounting for everything that runs beneath the surface and never shows itself until the moment it needs to. When he stands, he has decided nothing visibly. He locks the unit, drives home, makes dinner. Darnell finds out about the invitations from Vic, who calls to ask about a dress code and mentions that Yvette put the card together nicely, that the catering is coming from the place on Meridian. First he's hearing about the food. 2 weeks before the event, Yvette brings a binder to the kitchen table. Tabbed. The front sleeve reads Retirement Celebration, Program, and Logistics. She walks him through the timeline. Arrival window. Welcome remarks. A segment she describes as acknowledgement from family, which she passes over quickly. Buffet. Final remarks. Who's giving the welcome? Darnell says. Aaron. He drinks his coffee. Final remarks. I thought I would. Since I know you best. She moves to the catering invoice itemized. She's ordered more than enough, because running short of food produces a specific embarrassment she considers unacceptable. I also spoke to Reverend Osei, she says. For a blessing before the meal, she adds, before he can ask. You didn't mention that. I'm mentioning it now. He looks at her. She looks back. Neither makes something of it. The envelope, Darnell says. In the program. Is there a point where you're planning? I'm handling the program, she says. The sentence closes the way certain doors close. Not slammed. Just firmly. All right, he says. He goes to the hall walkthrough without being invited. He finds Yvette at the far end with the facility manager, Aaron, and Nicole beside her, and a woman named Renata with a yellow legal pad who is there for coordination, Nicole explains. Aaron sees him first. Something moves through his expression. Not guilt exactly, but what sits adjacent to it in people who haven't decided yet whether they've done something wrong. Darnell looks at the layout. 8 round tables. A long rectangular head table positioned at the front, not to center the guest of honor, but to position them. A microphone stand. A podium. Beside the podium, a small empty table. The stage wasn't in the original plan, Darnell says. Visibility, Yvette says. For the speeches. He looks at the empty table beside the podium. He looks at Renata. Test the sound system the morning of, he says. These old halls eat the low frequencies. Anything below a tenor, adjust the EQ before people arrive or the back row hears mud. Renata writes it down. Darnell nods. Leaves the way he came. He sits in his car in the parking lot for a while, engine off. He's thinking about the empty table. Not with alarm. With the feeling he gets when a system reveals one more component than the schematic showed. He drives to the post office. His box has one item. He reads it in the car. Folds it. Places it flat against his chest in the breast pocket of his jacket. He drives home and makes dinner. Yvette doesn't mention that he came to the walkthrough. He doesn't mention the post office. The morning of the event, Darnell wakes before his alarm. He showers, shaves with the straight razor Yvette gave him years ago. Dresses in the suit he had cleaned 2 weeks ago. Dark charcoal. White shirt. A burgundy tie he picked himself. He goes downstairs. The coffee is already made. Yvette is at the table in her robe, both hands around her cup, looking at her phone. She's already done her hair. Renata confirmed setup is done, Yvette says. Caterer's at 4. What time do we leave? 5:30. The event starts at 6. 28 minutes to the hall at that hour on a Saturday. 2 minutes of buffer, which she knows exactly. They will arrive with the guests already there, no standing at the door, no quiet moment before the room fills. He goes upstairs. He takes the folder from the nightstand drawer where it's been for 3 weeks. Opens it. Reads through it once. Closes it. Places it in the inside breast pocket of his jacket. He looks at himself in the closet mirror. The tie is fine. The program runs cleanly until 8:40, when Yvette moves toward the microphone. Aaron spoke well during the welcome. Holloway presented the certificate. Reverend Osei gave the blessing. Darnell said a few words about invisible work and sat down. Now Yvette adjusts the microphone. She thanks the guests. She talks about 32 years with the particular skill of someone who knows how to make a speech about someone else, that is, in its architecture, about themselves. She's wearing the blue dress she bought in March. She looks composed in the way that excess composure looks when something is being managed. I want to be honest tonight, she says. The room doesn't shift yet. There are decisions that get delayed that maybe shouldn't be delayed anymore. She reaches into her purse. The envelope comes out. She crosses the room toward Darnell. The sound of her heels is audible because the room has gone quiet enough to hear it. She extends the envelope. He takes it, reads it, folds it, places it on the table. Aaron steps beside his mother. Nicole rises from her table and stands on Yvette's other side. Terrence remains seated. His eyes go to the floor. Darnell looks at the three of them. Looks at the banner on the wall. Looks at Vic near the center tables, whose expression is the face of a man watching something he has no category for. Then he reaches into the breast pocket of his jacket. He removes the folder. He sets it on the table beside the envelope. He doesn't open it. He doesn't hand it to anyone. He simply places it there, then pulls out the nearest chair and sits down facing forward. The room begins the work of understanding that it has been reading the wrong document all evening. Nicole is the one who crosses to the table. She opens the folder, lifts the first page. Her eyes move across it at a particular speed, faster than someone unfamiliar, slower than someone who already knows. They stop. She reads that section again. Darnell watches the exact moment the number registers, not from her expression, which she controls, but from the small pause in her breathing, which she doesn't. She hands the page to Aaron without speaking. Aaron reads it with both hands, holding it the way you hold something you weren't expecting to be heavy. He turns to the third page. His hands lower slightly, not dramatically, just by a few degrees. He puts the page face down on the table. Terrence stands. He crosses without being invited, picks up the third page, reads it with the speed of someone who processes these documents professionally. His expression does the thing that professionally neutral expressions do when a number breaches the neutrality. He sets it down. He looks at Darnell. You've been building this since, Terrence starts. Before Aaron was born, Darnell says. Yvette has made her way to the edge of the room. She's standing near the stage, back to the wall. Her hands are at her sides. How long, she says. 11 years of documentation in there, Darnell says. Some of it goes back further. I mean, she stops. How long have you? A while, he says. She nods once. Very slightly. In a way that commits to nothing. The room absorbs this in pieces. The coworkers can't read the pages from where they're sitting, but they can read the people around the table. And they're doing exactly that with the accumulated intelligence of men who have spent their lives in situations where what's said and what's meant are almost never the same thing. Vic reads it correctly before anyone else. He reads it in Aaron's stillness, in Nicole's retreated posture, in the way Yvette said how long and stopped. He sits back slowly and says something very quiet to the man beside him. The following morning, Aaron finds Darnell at the diner 3 blocks from the house. He comes in without calling first. He's wearing the same clothes as the night before, the collar open now, jacket folded over one arm. He sits in the booth across from his father without asking if the seat is taken. Darnell is eating. He doesn't stop. The loan request, Aaron says. I'm withdrawing it. All right, Darnell says. I went to see Clyde Okafor, Aaron says. A few months ago. I know. He told me. Aaron absorbs this. He puts both hands flat on the table. I thought I was looking out for you, he says. I know you did, Darnell says. That worksheet. The blank line. Aaron looks at his hands. I asked you at the restaurant what else there was. You said the pension wasn't the main thing. I did, Darnell says. You could have just told me. I wanted to understand what you were going to do with the wrong number, Darnell says. Aaron looks up. The answer sits between them. He picks it up and finds it heavier than he expected. He doesn't say anything else. He leaves before Darnell finishes eating. The booth door swings behind him. A woman at the counter glances over. Looks away. Darnell finishes his coffee. He pays. He leaves. The Union Hall empties the way events empty when they've run past their natural end. Vic is among the last to go. He puts his hand on Darnell's shoulder, says nothing, and leaves. Holloway pauses at the door. It was a good 32 years. Darnell tells her he knows it was. Reverend Osei finds Yvette near the stage and speaks quietly to her before he goes. Renata collects her things and exits through the side door without ceremony. The 4 of them are left. Terrence stepped outside at some point during the emptying, with the instinct of a man who knows when a situation has family inside it and no room for anyone else. Nicole sits at a table closer to the stage than where she started the evening. She has her phone in her hands, not looking at it. We should have asked you directly, she says. Yes, Darnell says. Why didn't you just correct it? At the restaurant, when you saw the worksheet was wrong. Because I wanted to understand what you were going to do with the wrong number, he says. She turns this over. She doesn't say anything else for a while. Then, is that enough? For now. He looks at her. For now, he says. She finds Terrence outside. Aaron doesn't say goodbye at the hall. He stands at the door for a moment with his back to the room, the same position he held at the start of the evening. Then he turns and looks at Darnell across the length of the hall. Something is in his face that Darnell can see from this distance, but cannot fully name. The expression of a man who came with a clear understanding of who his father was and is leaving with a different one, and hasn't determined yet what to do with the space between them. He opens his mouth, closes it, leaves. Yvette is still sitting in a folding chair that doesn't belong to the head table or to her original position. Just a chair pulled from the nearest round table, belonging to the room generally. The lights have dimmed slightly on a timer. The caterers are gone. 11 years, she says. Not to him specifically. Closer to 12, Darnell says. She closes her eyes. Were you protecting it from me, she says. The storage unit. The files. He's quiet for a moment. I was building something, he says. I needed to build it the way I knew how to build things. Which is quietly, she says. Which is carefully, he says. She looks at him. Is there a difference, she says. He thinks about it. Sometimes, he says. She looks at the folder on the table. Still open. Pages slightly disordered from multiple hands. I'll need to talk to someone, she says. A lawyer. That's your right, he says. The folder, she says. Does that change? She stops. Won't finish it in front of the empty chairs. Look at the third page, he says. The annuity structure. She waits. It's in both our names, he says. Since 2014. She stills. You put it in both names, she says. Yes. While I was. Yes, he says. While. She doesn't look away. Her composure changes quality, no longer the composure of someone executing a plan, but the composure of someone who has discovered that the person they were certain they were leaving is more complicated than the version they prepared to leave. This does not resolve cleanly into staying or going. I need to sit here a while, she says. All right, he says. He picks up the envelope and the folder. Aligns the pages. Closes it. Puts it under his arm. He straightens his jacket. He looks at the banner on the far wall. One corner has come loose from the tape and is beginning to curl down slowly, with the gravity of something that was always going to come loose. I'll be at the house, he says. She doesn't respond. He says it again. Not differently. Just again. She nods. Very slightly. In a way that could mean many things and commits to none of them. He walks through the narrow corridor that smells of floor wax and old carpet and pushes out into the parking lot. The air is cold. He gets in his car. The storage unit on Garfield Avenue is 11 minutes in one direction. The house is 28 in the other. He starts the car. He doesn't turn on the radio. He drives.